and welcome to the SharePoint Framework and JavaScript Special Interest Group bi-weekly meeting. It is May 25th, 2017. We've got a good meeting again for you this week, and we're excited to go through it. But first, as always, we want to review very quickly what we're about for folks that might be new to the call or might be watching the videos for the first time. So we are a special interest group that exists under the larger SharePoint Patterns and Practices umbrella. And it was established to provide a much more focused area for people interested in client-side development, and then with the release of SharePoint Framework, then very much SharePoint Framework. But it's a little more focused rather than the large sort of community meetings. We were seeing in the past that the Patterns and Practices program was sort of a victim of its own success and had grown a little too big to where we couldn't have as much focused content, or an hour meeting just wasn't enough. So we've got this special interest group. We also have a special interest group for the PowerShell and the core component, so you can check those out as well. Of course, attend as many of these meetings as you'd like. We're always happy to have you. So what we'll go over is talking about SharePoint Framework, client-side development. Base has got a really cool demo on the Visual Studio extension there. We'll talk about a few small updates with the JavaScript core components. I don't have a ton to talk about there this week, but we will have a quick update. And as always, down there at the bottom, we've got SPFx Community, which is a great link. That's the AKA MS link. That takes you to the Microsoft Tech community, which is a great place to ask questions and talk to your peers around not just client-side development, but all things SharePoint and SharePoint development, as well as all things Office development. But we tend to be fairly SharePoint focused here in the Patterns and Practices. And then the dev.office.com/SharePoint is your one-stop shop for all things SharePoint development. Whether you want to learn the new SharePoint framework, whether you're doing add-in development, or whether you're doing full trust code like WSP development, all those resources can be found at that URL. So great tutorials, documentation, and we're always working on making that better as well. So check out both of those resources, are super valuable. And again, welcome to the call. Very happy you are here. So what are we going to talk about this week? Like I said, a quick update on the JavaScript core component, the latest on the SharePoint framework, what's going on there, and we've got two great demos lined up. Jose Quinto Zamora, hopefully I didn't butcher that name, and I apologize if I did, but we'll be getting started with the React TypeScript starter pack. So kind of a general how to get started with React demo, which I think is going to be very valuable, again, for folks. We've got to always remember folks are still coming in new to client-side development, so we want to provide kind of starting places for them. So I think it's going to be a great demo around that. And Vesa then has a great demo and discussion around the Visual Studio extension for SharePoint Framework. We've talked about that a little bit in the past, but we're making great strides, and that's getting much more improved, much better. That's terrible phrasing on my part, but that's going to be really cool to see, and we'll see the updates there. And then we should have time at the end, as always, for an open discussion, and you can always, of course, ask questions in the IM window. So real quick, I always like to talk about the opportunities to go over to participate in the special interest group or the sort of the patterns and practices in general. And on this call, we're really encouraging folks in the community to demo. So we want to see the cool stuff you guys are working on. I think that's one of the best ways for us to all learn from each other, is to see the exciting things different folks come up with, different techniques folks are using. I know I've learned a lot about different frameworks that I've never used, or in some cases heard of on this call, from different folks using different things with SharePoint Framework or client-side development in general. So if you have a demo you'd like to do on this call, please just reach out, let us know. We'd love to have you do a demo, and love to give you that platform to kind of show off your work. And again, I think it's a really valuable place for all of us to learn from each other. You can, of course, always contribute on GitHub, either to the JavaScript core component or to any of the other patterns and practices libraries. We always welcome contributions, either in the sense of reporting an issue or submitting a pull request, or both excellent ways to contribute. And then providing us sort of feedback, whether that's in a Gitter channel or in the Microsoft Tech community, or user voice, any of those kind of forums. We always really appreciate and value the feedback. I know sometimes it seems we don't act on things immediately, and that's just part of schedules and the way the world works, but we always do value that feedback. We always do read that feedback and sort of take it to heart. So keep that coming. We really very much appreciate it. So quick update, like I said, on the JavaScript core component. We're getting some great feedback from folks. I took a very short vacation and came back to a bunch of issues in the issues list and some pull requests, which is always fantastic to see. So thank you, everybody there. And just wanted to give a note. I am working through that I'll call it a backlog of stuff, but I am actually off-site the rest of this week, so it'll be a little bit delayed, but working through that. And we'll release sort of instead of doing sort of one-off beta versions for all those things, I'll release a roll-up beta once I get a little bit caught up there, so folks can install that, test it out, see how things are going. And again, thank you to everybody for submitting those issues and those pull requests. And I did want to note, I will update the authors file with the next release. It occurred to me that some folks have been submitting some pull requests, and I, in the last couple releases, was not a good steward and didn't update the authors file, so I will take care of that with the next release. I did want to mention that. Pardon me. And one thing I did want to mention, and I don't want to sort of drone on about this, but I think it's important with the community as it grows and new people come into the community that we sort of reinforce the things that are important to us, both us as the Patterns and Practices program and us as hopefully all of you in the community is just remember to be respectful to everyone. Everybody has a lot of things going on in their life, different trips, different work responsibilities, different life responsibilities. So if you don't get a response sort of immediately to maybe an issue or a pull request, we absolutely appreciate you've done that work, you've given us that feedback, or you've submitted that pull request, but sometimes we can't get to it right away. So just don't worry, we value it, we will get to it, we will process it, we will respond to it. I know I do, and I can speak for everybody else on the core team, or I guess I will speak for everybody else on the core team, and we take every issue seriously. We do look at every issue. We have internal meetings where we review them, and we make sure that every issue gets the same amount of attention, whether it seems minor or major. So, but just do understand it might not be immediate, and that's for the core component or any of the other patterns and practices stuff. We very much value the feedback and the input, even if we do not respond immediately. So just keep that, be respectful to everybody in the community, and I think we'll continue to build a fantastic community that is really open and lets everybody come in and contribute safely. So moving on, Vesa can give us an update on the SharePoint Framework.
Let me unmute myself and take over the presentation. Let's see, whenever the loading actually stops for me. There we go. Oh, what happened? Why did we jump on start? That was interesting. I will blame Skype on this one. No, I will blame something else. So, SharePoint Framework, latest guidance, samples, and work that we've been doing in engineering. So, a few things what I wanted to kind of reiterate for those since the latest special interest group on the SharePoint Framework. And one of the really, at least personally, this is one of my all-time favorites webcasts, because this is opening up such a humongous amount of different opportunities, is the SharePoint PMP webcast around calling external APIs securely from SharePoint Framework. And I wanted to raise this one in here, even though we mentioned that already 2 weeks ago when it was the build week. This one is a superb webcast and technique, and let me unmute people because now there's some background noise. Okay, somebody said mute all. Apparently I was muted as well. So okay, let's concentrate.
Back at it.
So this particular webcast, I'll come back on this one. This is a classic story of, hey, we have a customer, or we have a end users who are using SharePoint Online, and we want to surface, for example, a line of business information from on-premises in SharePoint Online. In the past, this has been a classic challenge with JavaScript, embedding a JavaScript on SharePoint Online, and then how do we secure that channel between the JavaScript and a web API, which will then be be able to access on premises, as an example. And this webcast is actually showing how that can be done using SharePoint Framework, but the model is actually suitable for classic approaches as well. So if needed, you are able to use the same model. And at least for me, as a classic enterprise developer, I do have a long history from fields building this kind of things for customers. This is the holy grail of cloud. So, and SharePoint Online, because essentially it enables you in a secured way call whatever, a custom web API, Azure function from a JavaScript. And then it's up to the fact that, okay, what do you want to do? Do we want to access on premises? We can easily do that using Service Bus. Do we want to do something else in Azure? Absolutely doable. This model does theoretically work even in on-premises, and the only challenge or only thing to notice is that it only works if the identities are matched on the same identity provider, which isn't usually the case, because that would require a connectivity from on-premises to Azure AD and all of that. So, but that gets slightly more complex, and that's an identity discussion. We're looking into, we've been having also contributions around this topic from MVPs and a few ISVs. So we're looking into extending this in the future as well. There's some really cool scenarios available, and we'll build on building on guidance and samples on these ones as well. This one, the Visual Studio extensions for SharePoint Framework, this one was a new webcast, which we released, new webcast and a new extension, which was released this week on Monday. And I'm going to demo this probably after Jose. Let's see how we actually want to do that. But one of the key feedbacks, what we from SharePoint Engineering has been getting since the early dawn of SharePoint Framework is that, hey, it's cool, it's fine, but I'm a Visual Studio IDE guy. I want to build my stuff in a Visual Studio IDE. Why do I need to learn Visual Studio Code or all of these command line things? And why do I need to run Yeoman templates from the command line? This actually removes that requirement. So if you're not yet ready to learn how to do web stack development, this extension will make you possible to create SharePoint Framework solutions in Visual Studio 2015 or 2017. 2017 is much better for the Node.js implementations. And essentially, it's still taking advantage of all of the latest versions of the Yeoman template. So it's not replacing anything. It's just hiding essentially that command line connectivity, command line complexity behind of it. It's not super complex, and we do recommend people to actually learn that, but this should help on adapting the client-side web part development in the future. And please do remember to unmute yourself, or mute yourself. I'm sorry. People are getting unmuted all the time. Now, AKMS SPFx VS extension, you can find, I think that's it's redirecting to the GitHub for the time being. I'll show you this one in practice as well. And there's a webcast together with Eric Chops and Paul Schaffelin, who are the guys behind of the extension. And they've been the initial contributors on this extension. We want to build this together with community as an open source solution. So absolutely welcome contributions on this one as well. Good. On the new stuff on the Visual Studio, on the SharePoint Framework, so what I wanted to kind of quickly go through, it's now been 2 weeks since Build 27 conference. And last week there was a SharePoint Framework summit. We saw some feedback in the social media. People were saying, "Hey, why wasn't there that much developer stuff in the SharePoint summit?" And the answer was that there was a decision done that will announce our development story and development things in the build, which was week before. And I did demo some of this stuff in practice 2 weeks ago. So if you want to see these in practice, please have a look on our build recordings into channel 9, or please have a look on the last special interest group recording. The last special interest group, that was actually kind of nice. It was a sneak preview what we were planning to announce in the build. So people who attended the special interest group actually knew about the stuff before. And I'll come back on the timing on rolling this stuff out in a second. So SharePoint Framework extensions, I'm going to show that from a picture perspective, and those in the following slides, but that's a really big thing. So SharePoint Framework extensions will enable you to embed JavaScript on the SharePoint sites. So it's no longer just web parts, classic JS link, classic user custom action in a controlled way. And let's come back on that one in a second. We also announced web part to web part connections. So you're able to essentially communicate between the web part, so you can have a list of items and then a detailed list, detailed web part on top of that. So somebody selects an item, you can show the additional details on it. And then the third thing isn't super easily understandable. What does it actually mean? What the Open ID Connect means is that as part of the dev preview, which will start relatively soon, and I'll come back on the details on the dev preview in a second, we'll also give you a Graph client natively within the SharePoint framework. So if you have done any client-side web part development, you know that there's the context. You can access SharePoint client and then call against the SharePoint REST APIs without worrying about the headers and all of that. We'll give you a similar kind of a thing against Graph. We'll, however, start with the limited set of scopes, and there's multiple reasons behind of this, and we'll extend the scopes later on. So when we start the journey, you are able to get access easily on Microsoft Graph groups, and you will have a read and write permissions to the group. We're looking into extending that to the me objects, section as well, and obviously on the other sections as well in the future. This kind of relates, and I'm kind of jumping between the topics, but as part of if you need to have access on the Graph, if you need to have access on the Graph information using the access tokens of the user, apparently this is super early, but we might actually have a even better story for you in the future. We'll get that documented. We've been testing around with some technologies and some approaches, and it seems to be that we're able to get the access token of a user without ADL.js requirements, which is pretty cool, and that will enable then even additional scenarios in SharePoint Framework. But we'll come back on that one. We need to get it documented properly, because if we don't get it documented properly with samples, then people are sending, for example, email to me for asking additional details, and I simply don't scale for that. So we need to get it documented, tested, verified, but it looks super cool. Good. So on the SharePoint Framework extensions, this is the slide which I showed in build. So you can actually have a look on the build recording for a light demo, like mentioned, or also in the previous special Introscope session. But essentially what the SharePoint Framework extensions are, they will give you a specific extension points in the SharePoint. You're able to, as an example, you're able to embed any JavaScript at site collection or site or list level. Plus, we'll give you specific sections and places in the UI, which will guarantee that they will be there in the future as well. If we think about the classic user custom action implementations, where people are just embedding a random JavaScript on a site collection, and then you inject stuff on the DOM structure of the HTML, that works. It does work. We showed that in the PMP. We've been showing that actually for years. I think I originally came up with that one like 2013 for a few of the large customers. But that's a fragile thing to do. Whenever we introduce some UI changes, your customization might actually break. And that's what we want to avoid in the future related on SharePoint Framework and provide the SharePoint Framework extensions. So guarantee you that we will not break you as long as you will agree certain, let's say, ground rules, and we'll give you the extension points in the UI. When we start the dev preview, there will be unfortunately only just one extension point, but we will extend those in the future as well. So we'll start with that header section, which is marked in the UI right now here. And in this case, we've been using Application Customizer, which is the user custom action, the modern user custom action, to embed a text and elements on the header section. We're looking into having obviously footer, absolutely needed. We're looking into having extension points on the navigation. We're looking into having additional extension points as well. well. So we absolutely understand what needs to be there. Trust me, I've written so many user custom actions for SharePoint Online, so we do know what needs to be there. But we need to go there step by step so that we don't cause any unexpected situations, and we don't want to release anything which we need to pull later on, which is one thing what is actually slightly delaying all of this stuff getting enabled. So because when we, as in the SharePoint engineering, we will give you an APIs, we will give you an extensibility points. If you start using them, we can't break you anymore. And that means that we need to be 100% sure that our APIs are bulletproof, it works, it actually fulfills the scenarios and all of that. That's why we go forward relatively, let's say, somebody might say slow, and you're enabling this too slow, and we get that, but patience will get there, one step at a time. Now, the second extension, which is visible in the page, which wasn't that visible until I marked that, is the command set extensions. So you're able to indicate or able to associate JavaScript to be executed as part of the button clicks, either in a toolbar or in the context menu. So as an example, we'll click, if you have selected 2 items, you can show an additional button. If somebody clicks the button, you can show a pop-up in the same context of the page, and then you're able to do something with the items, as an example. You do not need to redirect people to another view and all of that, which was required in the past. And then the third thing, which isn't again super visible on the UI, but that's information is actually intentionally blurred, is the field extensions. And field extensions are essentially same as JS Link. So you're able to control how the field values are being rendered when the mouse is over, when the mouse is not over. You're able to control also the editing experience in the future. And we'll give you the extensibility point. Essentially what we're asking people to do or control is that, hey, there's a field if there is a field customizer for this field, you own what will be rendered in that section, in that div. It's up to you what you want to do. If you want to render a button, if you want to render an icon, image, whatever, absolutely suitable. If you want to style the field in a different way, yeah, you can easily do that as well. So you will have full control on all of that. When I start the dev preview, this one will only, thanks for the comment, David. This one only is around the presentation, so the read-only mode, but we're looking into extending that absolutely to the editing experience as well, like you were able to do with the client-side rendering thing in the past in the classic UIs. Now, so like mentioned, there's kind of 3 different customizers when we start, and we're not going to stop here. There will be additional customizers in the future as well. We'll start with an application customizer, so you're able to essentially embed JavaScript to be executed in all of the pages within a site or in a site collection or in a list. Again, up to you how do you want to do that. You can render something in a UI, or it could be, let's say, Google Analytics JavaScript, which you're embedding on a site, if you want to do that. Again, up to you on the scenario, what you want to enable. We'll have the command set customizer for embedding JavaScript related on action buttons, and then also the field customizer, like I explained on the previous slide. Good. And good comment from Darren. Obviously, the fact that we are referencing to a JS Link and user custom action, that always kind of assumes that people have a previous expertise, how certain scenarios were able to achieve in a SharePoint. But the reason why we reference to the old technology and old models is that there are people who are aware of those terms. But only thing what we need to remember, I'll go back on one slide, is that you will have all of these extensibility points. You're able to control the field rendering, you're able to add buttons and what's going to happen with the button when somebody clicks the button, and you're able to embed JavaScript and even take some elements on the UI and overwrite them completely if needed. And that's pretty cool. That will enable, let's say, I would be bold and say majority of the commonly needed scenarios in SharePoint Online in the modern experiences, which is super, super important, so that customers and partners are able to gradually move to the modern experiences as well, which are natively responsive and all of that. One slide when we went. Now, there was already a question in our window, when are we getting our hands on this? Now, we're still polishing some of the APIs. We're still testing that everything is fine, and this will happen. How would I say this without saying exact date? Because I don't know the exact date. Why don't you know the exact date? Well, because we're still polishing stuff, and we don't want to actually say that it's on next week's Friday, and then if we delay, people will be angry. And that's really the reason why we don't want to say an exact date, because we're still working on making sure that the dev preview will be successful for you as well. Right now, we're looking into having this dev preview available for devs tenants, and might be also in a first release tenants, starting, let's say, in rather in weeks or days than in months. That would be the right way of putting this. So it is coming soon. I cannot give you the date, because we have, like mentioned, certain bugs which we need to still fix on the extensions. And again, if any of our super great engineers are suddenly sick, that will then delay that date. We don't want to actually, that's really the key reason why we don't want to get that date out. Capabilities will be application extensions, command line extensions, command set extensions, and field extensions. These will be new template types to the Yeoman template. So when you run the Yeoman generator, there will be an option to choose, do you want to do client-side web part, or do you want to do an extension? And we'll give you, like mentioned, Yeoman templates. We'll give you updated documentation and tutorials and labs and samples for this one as well. So you'll have great tools to get started. The dev preview will take will be on for some time. Most likely then people are asking, okay, how long is the dev preview? When will the GA happen? And the answer is, we don't know. GA will happen when we've been able to fix and provide the needed capabilities, what you guys told us as part of the dev preview. But we're looking into having the GA, let's say, happening somewhere around summer, definitely before Ignite, unless there's massive surprises as part of the dev preview. We're not assuming that to happen, that there would be massive surprises, because we've been playing around with this one with some ISVs already, and we've been able to get critical feedback in from them. So looking pretty okay from that perspective. Now, I think that was the last thing. Yes, this is a slide which I took from the Build 2017 SharePoint Framework session. If you're interested on really having the longer story on all of the stuff and the demos, go to Channel 9, search with, for example, with Vesa. You'll find the build sessions, which we did 2 weeks ago. But on the roadmap side, so we're looking at the SharePoint webhooks has G8. We're looking into actually extending webhooks, having additional webhooks as well, not explicitly called out on the slides. SharePoint Framework G8 on end of February. SharePoint Sites in Microsoft Graph G8 in build. So that was announced in build 2 weeks ago. The web part connections will be available soon. SharePoint Framework extensions will be available soon as well. And we want to actually go to GA as fast as possible with these ones as well. We do not, however, have an exact time. The fall could be also summer. It really depends on how much findings what we're getting. Native graph access for SharePoint Framework GA in summer, fall as well. ALM APIs means that we want to have you easier capability of deploying SharePoint Framework solutions across your tenant. There's two sides of the story. The first side is that we're looking into having options for the developers to define that, hey, as long as this web part has been deployed to the app catalog and enabled by the tenant administrator or the person which have been delegated the permissions to do that, the web part will be immediately available across the tenant. So nobody needs to explicitly install the web part on a site if that's suitable for the web part scenario. Again, slightly depends on the web part scenario and how that would be working. The second dimension on the ALM APIs, what we're looking to do is to enable programmatic way to install, update, delete SharePoint Framework solutions and also add-ins to the sites. So finally, that API development is moving forward. We do have a spec for it already internally, but we're now looking into queuing that up in our development cycles. And a final thing maybe on the SharePoint Framework. So SharePoint Framework web parts will be landing in on-premises as part of the feature pack for SharePoint 2016. Right now, there is no plans to do SharePoint Framework or release SharePoint Framework for SharePoint 2013, which is one thing to remember. Obviously, the future version, future on-premises server, there will be, I think we announced that some time before in the spring, there will be another, obviously, major version of SharePoint server coming in the on-premises as well. That will have a natively SharePoint Framework included in it, which is awesome as well. And from a timing perspective, people might be again asking, what is Feature Pack 2? When is Feature Pack 2 going to be released? I don't know. Whenever the Feature Pack 2 is ready and tested and verified that it works, then it will go live. But it's somewhere in the fall or in the second half of this calendar year. So somebody might have some additional insights on the Feature Pack 2's schedule, but probably we haven't actually announced that yet explicitly. So good. Anything else? What did I include on this one? Cool. We have 28 minutes on the demos, and I think let's start with Jose, and then we can move back to me. So I won't be talking the whole time. So let's do some variations. Jose, are you ready to go?
Right. Thank you, Besa. Thank you for having me here again. Can you hear me now?
Yes. All good.
Yes.
All good.
I will be starting presenting desktop. Share my screen. Just let me know when the thing starts to pair.
Yep. And for those who were asking questions, I'm going to scan through the Ion window if I missed something. So I'm going to, while Jose is presenting, trying to multitask.
I just got the screen on my end.
As well. Got it as well. So good. Good to go.
Cool. So yeah, nice to me to be here in this PNP special interest group call. So for those who don't know me, my name is Jose Quinto, and I work for a company called Canton & Code, which is based in London. And the original idea for this demo was born in a PNP.js core Jitter channel, because some people were asking about how to start with TypeScript, React, project from scratch. And I was quite happy to help my experiences in the past, which I did in a blog post about that and a boilerplate in GitHub just before the original and the official TypeScript engineer team released their own. So today what I am going to show you is which new concepts and tools we are using as a web as a SharePoint and web developers, and what template we have available to use as well, and how to decide every template we can use for that. And I will end with the demo on the TypeScript React starter template. So having this in mind, when we come from a different scenario in which we used to develop some kind of web parts, on-prem web parts, or even some JavaScript code in our content editor web parts. Now we end up with this new model, with these new technologies, concepts and tools. Basically, this is a bunch of information, a bunch of new things. So basically, what we have in our environment, in our development environment, is a Node.js with Express or a Webpack server even. But there in this web dev server, which is live actually in our machine, in our physical machine, we can develop our own TypeScript, JavaScript, CSS, or whatever technology we like to use, and React as well. And we can even use something called npm packages, which is basically components we can reuse from other people. Everything we need to use in terms of our code, our external code, or whatever, we need to bundle with some kind of system, which is a bundler. Basically, currently we have two bundlers, Browserify or Webpack. Webpack, I really like Webpack more than Browserify for different reasons. We were working in different projects. But this is not all the things. So we also have something called a hot module replacement, which is replace the modules when you save some TypeScript module or some React module. When you save some changes, automatically refresh on the browser, on this kind of stuff. But the final of all of these is just to generate a bundle, JS bundle or CSS bundle or whatever bundle we want to include at the end on our SharePoint page in a content editor web part or script editor web part or even in Azure web application. So there are some templates outside which help us with all these a bunch of information and tools and definition. Basically, we have, depends on the scenario we have, because if we want to build a SharePoint Framework web part, we are so well covered with the SharePoint Geoman generator and this stuff. But for other scenarios in which we want to have this or similar environment with TypeScript, with NPM, importing packages, these things with Webpack, React, TS-Lint. So recently, the TypeScript engineering team released a template called TypeScript React Starter. This is official from the GitHub of Microsoft. This is the URL, in fact. And basically, which brings is a TypeScript template with React Webpack 2, recently updated this week, TS-Link, Jest, and PostCSS. In addition, if we want to do more complex scenarios in which we want to enable the hot module replacement or CSS modules or some stats on there, we can use this link below, which is the template, the boilerplate I built myself a few months ago. So let's start with the demo. Just a lot more time on here. Let's move on. And in the demo, firstly, I will be installing this application, this template. And the only thing we need to do to install this template, this TypeScript template, is just type npm install globally. Create React app. Installing this create React app, we are getting from npm the package which actually will bring all our React generator. Not only in terms of React and macroservices, but we can use as well for creating our TypeScript application. So if we now create React app by using, for example, one name, my cool app, but we need to specify here in the scripts the version of the scripts, which is equal React scripts TS TypeScript. So now, behind the scene, which is happening is this create app application itself is a node application which is creating all the files necessary for having our own development environment with all the stuff we were talking before, including the node server, including the React TypeScript configurations, all the thing. I want to spend 1 minute here because it's so quick. I want to show you how quick we can create this application, because actually this is not only create the files and generate all the architecture of our files, it's also installing the packages inside of our node modules using Yarn. So basically, the problem with we have with this kind of solution, with this kind of already packaged solution, is that we don't have so much customization. I mean, if we want to customize our solution, for example, including in our Webpack different CSS techniques, we can't do it because it's already packed with this template. That means we can do that by using other techniques which are in other GitHub repositories. So this is what I am going to show you now. I think that's the last step remain to create this app. Basically, by creating this app, well, now fetching parameters. Cool. We have already created the app, so we can now go to my cool app folder and see what's being here. So if we open code by using code dot, what we can see here is the base of the application we already created with the source folder, with the public folder, and so on, in which we have our CSS, our test, and our TypeScript React component on here. So let's look this in detail. So we have different scripts for npm: start, build, test, and eject. So basically, for example, if we click on start, npm run start, that is cool because actually we can start building our custom application from now, because this will be starting the browser with our React example on here, and we can start, for example, if we want to include the SPFx, we can just install with npm, or if we can include a moment library or whatever library we want, we can include. So this is our React application. Let's see now, just besides the screen, let's see now how we can change, for example, some value, welcome 3, for example, and save. And we can see how the page is automatically synchronized with the code anytime we change. So that is really cool for having used from scratch just now. Now what we're going to do is we're talking about we have one problem on here, which is, imagine we want to configure some extra configuration on here. You can see how in the dev dependencies, the only dependency we have is the React script TS. So we don't have a TypeScript version on here, we don't have Webpack version, we don't have any versions, which means that we are not able to configure as much. But this template have an option, which is eject. We can use eject. Let's see how it works in the fly. We can use eject, npm run eject, to extract all the configuration to our template, which means that we are free to configure whatever we want. So let's run. Let's see the package JSON, because that means that every dependency we had in the other script have been included on here, which means, for example, now we can see on here the Webpack, the server version we have. We can upgrade TypeScript if we want to do. So that is quite nice to have, because sometimes you need extra configuration on your application. Okay, now just to show you how that works, let me add, for example, modify something in the application. We can, for example, here put some console log. And a debugger on here. Cool. We now click on npm run start. This error is something, it's a bug from the npm package from the GitHub. I just reported this bug and they are working on solving it. So, but eventually it works fine. So it's something which is not directly related with the code itself, because it works. So now we are going to see how our application click on F12 to see the debugger itself, and we can shave now and see how it reflected and pause the debugger on here with our console log web page. That's quite nice, because I will make bigger, because we have actually our TypeScript code, and we can see all the variables on here directly on the debugger. So the debugging experience is so good, in my opinion, even if we are developing on TypeScript and React. So let's move on and see the last thing I want to show you. Imagine we want to, let's remove the debugger thing. Imagine we want to upgrade our template, and we want to add some kind of stats for our bundle, which is a really nice feature in my opinion. So what we're going to see now is how to create here a new folder called stats. And I will create a new file, which is called webpack config stats.js. And actually what I am going to do now is to add an stats config with an stats package. Let me install this webpack plugin, because we will need to install that. Just type in on here npm install shave and the package. Cool. Installing the package. The last step to do is just to create on the scripts the new. Okay, I will explain a little bit better what I am going to do now. So what I'm going to do is create a new script, which means that I will be able to write npm run stats, and I will be using Webpack and some configurations with the Webpack profile in order to build a web page to show us as a developers what is included on our bundle, what Webpack is included on our bundle in a graphical way, which is good for us to know. So let's see if actually this is installed. Let me save the package JSON. Let me save the app and save the Webpack config stats. Basically, it's using some plugin for Webpack called Visualizer plugin, generating some file on here in this JavaScript. I will share with you later the link in which you can see all these configurations, so you can easily add in your Webpack projects. Is internet going slow now? What's happening here? Okay, anyway, yeah, now. So now let's run npm run stats, and that will be using the cool. Oops, something wrong here. Okay, let me let me go to my demo app, which is I prepared before. So let's click on npm run stats. Maybe some typo in the path or whatever. So now it's working the same way I was configuring on, and what is happening behind the scene is using the Webpack configuration for production, and including with this configuration and with all the magnifiers on all this stuff, is including all the statistics of usage for this. So now if we go directly, let me open the folder that is storing the file just in the folder called stats we created. So now we can start dot, which open actually the folder, and on config, stats. Okay, we have all the stats on here. And if we open, we can see how the Web App Visualizer is telling us a lot of information of our bundle. So actually, the bundle is 153 Ks, which is good. And we can see even not the node modules folder is 99%, and that includes the React DOM, which is 74%, and the React and FBS and all the libraries. To be honest, that was really useful for me in one project we work because I was including some library called Moment.js, and this library includes a lot of bits only for using in one part of my code. So this is really useful, and I recommend highly just to add in your process, in your bundle. So basically, that's all I want to cover, and the important points. Yeah, this code is available on GitHub. I will share with you both links for the official TypeScript React template and for the custom one in which you can grab these stats and the hot module replacement techniques. Feel free to add some feedback or any questions. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jose. So let me flip on my screen. Slightly advanced stuff for those who might be new on this stuff, but I think it was a good demo to get covered as well, so good clarification on how things are actually working. If you're looking, and just kind of clarify, if you're looking into just building client-side web parts, obviously we don't want to scare people that you will need to do all of that stuff and that level. No. A lot of that stuff has been done automatically for you by the Yeoman templates and the stuff from SharePoint Framework. But from an understanding perspective, what Jose went through is a really good thing. For example, the Webpack, the graphical presentation of the bundle, that's natively within the SharePoint Framework outputs as well when you're bundling your web part. But how it was done, that's super valuable as well. But let me quickly show the SharePoint Framework extension and the resources around that one, the Visual Studio extension. So this will be a relatively quick, I'm going to just pinpoint the resources and show it how it works. I think I did a relatively similar demo a while back, but the whole point is that this is now finally fully available and people are able to start contributing and helping and testing and all of that. Now, this week, Monday, we had a webcast where we go through more detailed the Visual Studio extension for SharePoint Framework, together with Eric Chaps and Paul Schaffelin, and these are the guys who are responsible of actually building this. I've been just helping on coordinating some of the stuff, and well, maybe some small adjustments here and there, but nothing major. And it's an idea which Eric came up with a while back, and it actually works really well. And it's aligned completely what we want to do within the engineering as well. You can find the Visual Studio extension from the Visual Studio Marketplace. So you can either come from a UI perspective, or if you open up Visual Studio, you actually can search using the marketplace and you'll find it in there as well. So let's come in here and just tools and extensions and updates. In my case, it's already been installed, but if you search for SharePoint, there's an SPFx project template. And that's the one which has been installed on my machine. Right now, the version is 1.01, and there will be there should be a new version relatively soon as well. And this one will then notify when there's new versions available using the updates functionality. How it works is that when we start creating a project in Visual Studio 2017, it actually introduced a new template option. It is this kind of debatable. We understand that it's under the C#, which is slightly misleading. It maybe should be in a TypeScript. On the other hand, it's side by side with all of the other SharePoint projects, and so that was the reason why it's currently in here as an option. Let me create this to my crap folder where I'm all doing quick demos. So let's call this SIG quick demo. and let's have a look on how it actually works. And I'm going to quickly explain also the background, how it actually works as well. So when you're creating a project structure in Visual Studio, it will pop up this UI window, which will actually use the solution name by default for the SPFx solution as well. That will be the project name as well in Visual Studio. I can choose right now React.Knockout because we're creating a web part project. And I can then do, for example, hello world web part. And this is quick demo web part. I can also choose if I want to run npm install as part of this creation or not. Let me actually do that one more time. And this essentially means, do I want to install all of my dependencies on this project or not? And that's the section which actually takes quite a long time. Because there's quite a lot of dependencies in SharePoint Framework, and you need to complete that either using command line or as part of the solution creation, so that you can do an F5 within the Visual Studio. But for a demo purposes, I can click that checkbox, and it will create the structure relatively fast. What actually happens in the background is that this wizard is formatting the command line string. So you will need to have the Yeoman templates installed on your machine, and obviously this wizard will just execute whatever you would be executing in command line as well. But you don't have to build the structure, you don't have to remember how it's actually done, you'll just fill up the wizard and click generate. And that will then essentially execute the steps for the command line. I'm going to quickly do that in here. This doesn't take that long because I have the no npm install option now enabled. And what it actually gives us is a relatively clean, well, it does give us a clean Visual Studio structure, and it's also giving us the output, what was actually executed and whatever was in a command line. So I can have a look on if there was any issues. And you can see from here that I have the basic structure is exactly the same as with SharePoint Framework web parts, because once again, it is using exactly the same Yeoman templates in the background, but it's just hiding that command line UI. Now, I did run npm install for one of these structures already. So here I have a solution where the Node.js and the Node modules folder exists. So if I do show all files, we can see the Node modules where we have all dependencies. So those are already in a disk. And what that means is that I can just do an F5. Let's see on which browser window this actually starts on all of these screens. Essentially what happens is that the F5 is executing the command line as well, in the same way as you would be doing culp serve if you're using just command line. And then it's opening up a browser, and here we go, there's my Visual Studio extension web part. And now I can do modifications in Visual Studio, I can do debugging in a browser, we can do a lot of other stuff here as well. But you are in the context of Visual Studio. Do you want to do that? That's absolutely depending on your preference. Some people do like the fact that you have the client-side web part in the same solution, and then you could extend this solution to have web APIs and whatever additional things which are part of your solution. So that makes a lot of sense. Again, there's multiple opinions. What's right or wrong is completely idiotic discussion in general in IT because there's no best practices. There's different ways of achieving the same end result. What suits for you might not be the best option for me. So it's always debatable. Quickly, just pinpointing, because we're running also out of time. So if you're interested on helping this, obviously there's one more thing. And this is obviously in the level of, I can do add a new item, and it will show me the web part. Let's come in here. Where do I have to? Oh, Office, SharePoint Framework, and I can actually create my web part to 23. So adding a new web part, it's going to fire again the wizard. We can call that whatever, and this doesn't take actually that long. And voila, we will have a second web part in our solution using just the UI elements. So super cool. The Solution and extension is in the is in the GitHub. So github.com SharePoint SPFx web parts is the actual address for this one. There's additional details, how to get started, additional resources, where to get it. You can get an earlier release version released on the release basis page on the GitHub. So if you come in here and do releases, you can always see the latest from here. So there is one newer version comparing the one which we have in the Visual Studio Gallery. Or you can download the one from a Visual Studio Gallery. And there's a nice getting started guide in the wiki as well from Paul, which is explaining how things are actually working. If you have a look on this, if you want to play around with this, if you want to contribute this, if you find issues, we do absolutely welcome contributions. We're looking into extending this in the future as well. Whenever the Visual Studio extensions, SharePoint Framework extensions will be available, we'll evolve this to include those as well. Because people seem to have a preference, or there's a lot of people who would like to have this kind of an extension in Visual Studio. But I think that's it for this demo. I went 1 hour, 1 minute on top of the hour. So let's flip back on the slides, and I think Patrick can close up the session.
Yep, thank you everybody. Really appreciate you coming in today. Thanks Jose for the awesome demo. Thanks Vesa for the great demo as well. I'm going to take over as presenter. And so, interesting today, it keeps switching back to where we were previously in the slides.
It's probably an end user issue. So
I do think it's an end user issue. So our next meeting will be June 8th. We've already got one demo lined up for June 8th, and so we got another slot. If somebody's interested and would like to do a demo, please just reach out and let us know. But we'll see you guys on June 8th. Thanks as always for joining the call, and look forward to interacting with you out in the community. Thanks everybody. Bye.
Thank you. Sharing is caring. Bye-bye.